Hello, everyone. Manus MacLean here, and welcome back to BrainDrain Newsroom for Wednesday, September 24th, 2025. Today, we're following a set of stories that sit at the intersection of public safety, civil rights, and the real lives of our neighbors. Here's a roadmap for this broadcast. Franklin Park shooting. A federal immigration agent fatally shot Silvero Vegas Gonzalez during a stop near Chicago. Body camera footage is raising sharp questions about what happened and why. DHS viral video, a Pokemon-style gotta catch 'em all clip promoting immigration arrest explodes across social media. Critics call it dehumanizing government propaganda. A labor organizer story. Farm worker Alfredo Lelo Juarez Zeferino says he was targeted because of his activism, then pushed into voluntary departure after the detention. Worst of the worst arrest. ICE latest press blitz touts the removal of people convicted of serious crimes. What's true, what's omitted, and how framing shapes public opinion. California's anti-mask law. The state moves to ban mass federal agents during ICE operations, with limited exceptions, setting up the constitutional confrontation. Courthouse arrest. New reporting from Cal Matters says ICE is still making courthouse-adjacent arrests in California despite state prohibitions, raising due process alarm bells. Economy and agriculture. New research from Oxnard, California estimates workforce losses, crop damage, and higher food prices tied to raids. We'll connect all of this and all around the midpoint. We'll take 1 minute for a mid-roll, what brain drain does, why it matters, and how you can help. Let's start in Franklin Park outside Chicago. Associated Press reporting today details of a fatal shooting of Silvero Villegas Gonzalez by a federal immigration agent during a traffic stop. The AP obtained police body camera footage that contradicts early DHS language about the agent's injuries. Initially, officials described these injuries as serious. On the video, the agent calls them nothing major. A scraped knee, a small cut. The difference between serious and nothing major is not semantics, it's moral calculus. The public applies when force is used. Let's outline the facts as reported. Villegas Gonzalez had just dropped his child at a daycare. The stop escalated. Shots were fired. He died. The Mexican government and local advocates are demanding transparency and an independent probe. While the investigation is ongoing, this footage changes the context of the perceived justification for deadly force. Associated Press has led on this story. The Guardian amplified the central contradiction: DHS rhetoric versus what the camera captured. Why this matters is bigger than Franklin Park. We've seen this movie before. Initial official statements that later conflict with audio or video evidence. In a law enforcement reporting, early narratives harden public opinion, and by the time video surfaces, many minds are made up. For immigrant communities, the message risk is chilling. Stops can turn fatal, and post-incident explanations might not match the tape. Look back to the past use of force controversies involving border and immigration agents. When a visual record surfaces, public understanding shifts. In Franklin Park, the shift comes down to a phrase, nothing major. That phrase doesn't prove a legal case. It does, however, recenter the proportionality of what happened. Practical stakes. We'll watch for one whether the full footage beyond the first angles is released. 2. Whether local prosecutors or federal oversight initiate a deeper inquiry. And 3. Whether DHS updates its public account. Families in the area are already organizing, congregations are providing support, and legal observers are compiling timelines. If you're in Cook County, know your rights during stops and keep a community hotline number handy. The Pokemon-style DHS videos, memes, messaging, and the line between info and propaganda. Next, the Pokemon-style DHS video. If you haven't seen it, the concept is this. Enforcement edited the classic theme, visual gags, and the tagline, "Gotta catch 'em all." It's slick, meme-ready, and wildly viral. Tens of millions of views on X. Outlets from Fox News to the New York Post ran with it, and local stations like Fox 2 Detroit documented the wave. El País covered the broader political context and informational reaction. Policing and PR have long been intertwined, but turning arrests into collectible cards and encouraging the public to see migrants as catchable characters shifts the narrative from due process to gameplay. Perception matters. When the public sees a game, it can dull empathy for the human stakes: detention, separation, removal. Is it illegal? Probably not. Is it ethical for a government agency to cartoonize arrest? That's the debate. Communication strategists will say it's message discipline. Own the frame, define the controversy. But many legal scholars and community groups counter that video dehumanizes the people who are the subjects of that enforcement, encouraging an us versus them video game vibe. Governments have used pop culture and messaging for a century. World War II cartoons, Cold War films, Just Say No PSAs, public service announcements, each tried to simplify complex policy for mass audiences. In 2025, that battlefield is your phone. The cost of simplification, though, is flattening reality. A person becomes a card, a raid becomes a clip, trauma becomes a punchline. Will DHS double down? Will Nintendo or the Pokemon Company object? Will the video be quietly pulled or recut? For now, the signal is clear. The agency wants to brand enforcement as decisive, fun, and inevitable. But branding doesn't change the legal rights people have or the obligation the government bears. Labor, speech, and selective enforcement, the Alfredo, Lelo, Juarez Zeferino case. Let's put a face on the chilling effect many workers feel. The Guardian reports that Alfredo, Lelo, Juarez Zeferino, a 25-year-old farm worker and labor organizer who grew up in the United States, was detained by ICE and ultimately accepted voluntary departure after months in custody. Advocates argue he was targeted because he organized. KUOW followed with a feature earlier this month detailing his life in Washington state and his forced return to Mexico. Labor organizing is protective activity in the U.S. When enforcement falls on organizers, it chills speech far beyond a single case. Communities conclude, speak up, get singled out. That undermines worker safety, wage fairness, and the collective bargaining that keeps industries honest. From the Braceria area's abuses to Cesar Chavez and the United Farm Workers, farm labor has always lived at the intersection of necessity and disposability. Fields feed America, but the hands in those fields are too often treated as replaceable, or worse, punishable for organizing. Did ICE act on an existing order? The guarding reporting says yes, but a legal basis can coexist with a retaliatory motive. The question for oversight bodies is whether enforcement discretion is being weaponized to silence activism. If you're involved in worker organizing and you're a non-citizen, 1, keep your documentation accessible. 2, identify a legal aid group now, not later. 3, have a family plan if detention occurs. Who calls a lawyer? Who cares for kids? And if you're a citizen ally, understand your role as a witness and a recorder when lawful. Facts matter when stories are contested. Now to the government's language. DHS and ICE have rolled out back-to-back press releases in recent days touting the arrest of the worst, people with convictions for violent or sexual offenses, weapons charges, and more. The September 23 release leads with indecent sexual contact with a child, manslaughter, aggravated robbery, and weapons possession. As a public safety message, that's powerful. As a framing device, it's even more powerful. Here's the catch. Past crackdowns marked in this way have often included collateral arrest, people not named in warrants, people with old or non-violent convictions, even those with no convictions at all. The weekend release also leans on the worst phrase, and when you read the fine print over time, the category can expand. That isn't to say serious offenders don't exist. They do. It is to say the language is doing heavy lifting beyond the facts of each arrest. When you hear worst of the worst, ask 1, what is the numerator? How many in that category were arrested? What is the denominator? How many total arrests happened in the period? 3, what is the collateral arrest rate? 4, how many have already served their sentences or been in the community for years? Good journalism and good citizenship both start with better questions. For communities, a message like this narrows empathy. It suggests any pushback is defending criminals. But constitutional rights don't vanish when labels appear. We can hold two ideas at once. Violent crime is real, and due process is non-negotiable. A quick message. You're watching BrainDrain Newsroom, powered by the BrainDrain Unlimited Foundation. Our mission is to turn global brain drain into America's brain gain, helping displaced, highly skilled professionals rebuild their lives and careers in the United States. We do three things: direct pathways support, guidance on employment-based immigration options like the EB-1, the EB-2, and IW-01, plus referrals to vetted legal help. Rapid response information, clear reporting on shifting rules, deadlines, and best practices so families aren't lost in bureaucracy. Community bridge building, connecting employers, universities, and local groups with internationally trained talent. If this reporting helps you, please support our work. Donate at braindrain.org/donate. Even $5 pushes this newsroom forward. Volunteer your skills, translation, mentorship, outreach. Subscribe and share. Your engagement teaches the algorithm to surface independent news. And keep in mind, all funds raised are used for this purpose. Thank you for keeping this work alive. On to California's new frontier. Governor Gavin Newsom signed a law on September 20th that bans federal agents from wearing masks during ICE operations in the state, except in narrow circumstances: SWAT deployments, undercover work, or medical reasons. The Washington Post laid out the contours. Advocates frame it as transparency and accountability, while DHS says a mask are a safety necessity. The collision course is obvious. Can a state tell federal agents what to wear? The Supremacy Clause says federal law generally beats state law when they conflict, but states can regulate health, safety, and public order within their borders. The question becomes, is California's rule an impermissible obstacle to federal functions, or a permissible transparency measure? Expect quick litigation and test cases focused on where arrest occurs and who is affected. Why masks matter? The masked agents erode public trust and complicate accountability. Victims and witnesses can't identify who did what. Journalists and lawyers struggle to pin down responsibility. On the other hand, agents do face retaliation risk. Striking a balance is hard, but blanket practice of masked enforcement nudges a democracy toward opacity. Likely path: short-term, temporary restraining orders or injunctions are possible. Medium-term, a path through the Ninth Circuit. Long-term, if the circuit split emerges, Supreme Court review. Meanwhile, on the ground, expect policy whiplash that is allowed this week and may change next week as rulings land. Courthouse arrest, due process on the edge. Cal Matters reports this week that California law forbids ICE arrest in courthouses, but enforcement is still happening nearby, on sidewalks just outside property lines, or at transit hubs serving courthouses. An Alameda County case reported by the San Francisco Chronicle underscores the point. The first courthouse-adjacent arrest there since the recent surge. The rule becomes a technicality, inside versus just outside, while the chilling effect is the same. Why courts are special? Courts aren't just buildings. They're trust engines. If witnesses fear appearing, cases collapse. If victims stay home, abusers walk. If defendants miss hearings, warrants issue and lives derail. This is why so many states have carved out sensitive locations, schools, hospitals, and yes, courts, as places where civil immigration arrests are tightly limited. The loophole problem. By staging arrest, outside agencies can argue they're following the letter of the law while violating its spirit. The result is the same. People don't show up. Defense attorneys and public defenders were warned that creating a shadow gauntlet around a courthouse undermines due process and equal access to justice. What to do if you have court? Check local response hotlines. Arrive with a witness. Know your rights regarding ID and silence, and have your attorney contact pre-written. If you're a citizen ally, your presence and your phone, as permitted by court rules, can be a difference between rumor and record. Finally, let's talk about food and work. A new working paper from Oxnard, California, posted to ARXIV quantifies the fallout from intensified raids. The authors estimated 20 to 40% reduction in the agricultural workforce, $3 to $7 billion in crop losses, and 5 to 12% increase in local produce prices. The study leans on USDA data and recent detention figures to model downstream effects. What it means at home. If you notice lettuce or berries creeping up in price, this isn't hypothetical. Labor shortages equal unharvested fields. Unharvested fields equals scarcity. Scarcity equals higher prices. That hits families first, but it also hits restaurants, school lunch budgets, and food banks trying to stretch limited dollars. Small farms versus big players. Large growers can sometimes absorb shocks with mechanization, diversified supply chains, or credit. Small and mid-sized farms, especially in immigrant-owned, live on thin margins. A single disrupted season pushes them from survival to exit. That means consolidation, fewer local producers, and resilience the next time climate or policy jolts the system. Wider economy. Agriculture is a bellwether. Similar dynamics arise in construction, hospitality, elder care, and childcare, sectors that rely on immigrant labor for predictability. When enforcement becomes unpredictable, cost and delays cascade through the economy. Policy takeaway. Enforcement is a policy choice with budget lines. If the goal is public safety, we should ask, are we achieving it net, or are we paying with court backlogs, family trauma, and more expensive grocery bill? Let's connect the dots. In Franklin Park, a father is dead, and a body cam audio clashes with official language about injuries. On social media, DHS recast enforcement as a collectible spectacle, viral, catchy, and deeply contested. In the fields, a labor organizer is effectively exiled, magnifying the chilling effect on speech. ICE's worst of the worst framing may be accurate for some, but the category creep and collateral arrest demand scrutiny. California's anti-mask law sets up a transparency versus supremacy showdown that will likely be decided in court. Courthouse-adjacent arrests undermine due process, turning legal venues into fear zones. And the food economy is feeling the pinch, from workforce shocks to price spikes, because policy choices don't stay on paper. They show up in your cart. That's the week in focus. Tools, rights, and next steps. A quick practical guide. If you or someone you love is in the crosshairs of these changes, know your rights. You can ask, am I free to go? You can remain silent. You can refuse a search without a warrant. Plan ahead. Keep documents and key numbers accessible. Identify a legal aid group now. Community defense. Rapid response hotlines, court watchers, legal observers. These networks work best when neighbors know how to activate them. Documentation. If local rules allow, record encounters, write down dates, times, badge numbers, save notices and letters. Stay informed. This show will keep citing sources out loud and show our show notes link to primary materials. Thank you all for being here. Independent reporting takes time, access, and tools. If you can, visit braindrain.org/donate or share this broadcast with someone who needs it. Your engagement keeps this newsroom accountable to you, not to ad buyers. I'm Manus MacLean, and this has been BrainDrain Newsroom for September 24th, 2025. Today, we credited reporting by the Associated Press, The Guardian, Cal Matters, Fox News, New York Post, Fox 2 Detroit, El País, The Washington Post, and official releases from DHS, ICE, plus an ARXIV search, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, research paper from Oxnard. Links are in the notes. Stay safe, stay informed, and if you're able, support BrainDrain so we keep doing this right. See you tomorrow.
Thanks for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed this and maybe even learned something new. If you did, don't just vanish into the algorithm. Hit like, subscribe, and follow us on social. It's the easiest way to support our work and make sure you never miss what's next. Want to stay in the loop without relying on big tech's mood swings? Sign up for our monthly newsletter. And if you've got the means, donations of any size keep our programs running strong. As a 501c3, your gift is tax deductible where the law allows. Together, we can turn brain drain into America's next big breakthrough.